Welcome to the Alecia Harris Show. I am your host, Alecia. I am a mama to 4 boys. I live in the Midwest. I'm an entrepreneur, course creator, body acceptance advocate, writer, author, all of the things. And I am here to bring you some stories and experiences of inspiration, things that will uplift you, things that will light up your heart. I hope that you always leave this podcast feeling loved and feeling hopeful and feeling like you can go on and take on the world, do the hard things, and do it in the way that you want. Do it in an inspired way. Do it in a loving way. I hope we always encourage love over hate, light over dark, and really be real and raw and honest about what it takes to be a human. Because you know what? It's freaking hard to be a human sometimes. So I hope it's a safe place for you. I hope it's a place of love. Thank you so much for being here. And I am just honored that you are spending your time with me. So on that note, let's dive into today's episode. In February of 2013, my mother-in-law Sally went to the hospital to get her gallbladder removed. It was a simple, easy, and routine procedure that typically promises a quick recovery time and an easy transition back to normal life. However, her story was meant to be written a little bit differently. Instead of removing the gallbladder, doctors found a softball-sized tumor on her liver. They were astonished, amazed, and baffled that Sally was still alive and that she had been walking around for months pain-free. She was diagnosed with hemangiosarcoma, which is one of the rarest forms of cancer you can get. So rare, in fact, they asked her to fly to New York so they could study her for research purposes. Her prognosis was terminal, and therefore she declined. To say that our life changed after hearing the news would be a gross understatement. To face losing someone you love so much at the young age of 55 seems so incredibly unfair. Figuring out how to tell your 2 young boys that their ZZ, which is what we called her, isn't going to be around to watch them grow up seems absolutely impossible. Nobody knew how long she would live because she was honestly a walking miracle at that point. So we spent every day preparing as best we could and treating it like it might be her last. My husband put his entire life on hold to take care of his mom, to help her get her affairs in order, and to make sure she didn't suffer in her last days on earth. Watching my husband care for his mom in her last days and be such a pillar of strength for her made me fall in love with him in an even deeper way. It's amazing how things that don't matter just fall away when faced with the idea of mortality. When someone is dying, they often have a burst of energy right before their time comes. It's often a few days before they pass, giving many families a false sense of hope. Thankfully, when this occurred with Sally, I happened to be off from work that day and was able to spend the day with her going through old totes and boxes from her closet. We went through old letters, mementos, and what seemed like pile after pile of a life full of memories. It was such a special time for us to be able to connect in that way and for her to give me her final wishes and hopes for me and the family. Being the only girl in the family at that time meant in many ways she was passing the torch to me and she wanted me to be prepared. She demanded courage from me, grace, and happiness. These things that would test my strength, yet in many ways save me from the despair that is grief. Her only request was that no one be sad and that her memory be celebrated with happiness. I had never seen someone face death with so much courage and dignity. She was unscared, unshaken, and the calm inside a very unfamiliar storm. 5 days after our time together, Sally left her human body here on earth. I had spent the past 2 days with her as we knew we had reached the final days, and I'm so thankful I was there when she passed on. I will never forget her final lucid moment about 20 hours before she had passed. My husband had gone home for the night with the kids to get some rest. Me and her had a rough night the night before since she was starting to hallucinate and be in and out of coherency. However, as soon as my husband walked into her room that morning, she held out her hand and said, "My Jerd." They laid on the bed together, holding hands and saying their final words. I knew she was holding on because she was worried about him, about us, about leaving. He kissed her cheek and said, "Mom, it's okay to go. We are going to be just fine. We love you. I love you." With that, she looked at her son one last time, placed a final kiss on his cheek, and fell into a space I can only imagine is the part that is suspended between life and death. It was a Tuesday morning, and I couldn't sleep. The feelings coursing through my body are often hard to describe. Peace, hope, sadness, grief just all kept cycling through. Every time I would check on her, I would wipe her brow, tell her I loved her, and assure her that she was free to let go. Watching my loved one die is one of the hardest things I have ever done in my life, but the amount of strength that seems to envelop me still astonishes me. I swear it was a gift straight from her, like her soul was sending me every ounce of strength she had so I could be the anchor she needed. I heard something drop in her room and immediately ran in there, fearing she had fallen out of bed. She was trying to sit up, and I immediately rushed to her side to help her. When I approached the bed, her head instantly laid on my chest. She looked into my eyes, and I knew this was it. I held my sweet mother-in-law, her cheek on my heart, as she peacefully passed, surrounded by me and her youngest son. I felt her heart slowly stop, her lungs fill, and with one perfect little hiccup, her last breath left her body. At 3:33 a.m., I saw the life leave her eyes and swear I felt her soul pass through mine as it went on. It would be impossible for me to describe that moment with words because it was so powerful. My attempts would certainly be an injustice. The significance of the time, 3:33, was not lost on me, as that is an angel number reminding us to always seek joy. One last reminder from her sweet soul for me to choose happiness. When I tell this story, many people ask how I was able to do what I did, and honestly, it was the greatest honor of my life. To be able to hold someone you love as they leave this earth is profound. I didn't just hold her hand, I held her. I felt her heart, her breath, and her final moment, she was quite literally enveloped in love and light and strength, and I am forever humbled by it all. That moment was a gift, and a moment that will forever be precious to me. Grief is odd. Time moves on, the sun still shines, but part of you seems to be suspended in the air, just waiting for your life to start up again. It's as if everything around you is moving, but you are stuck in this strange reality of what was and what now is. For me and Jared, we now think of life as before her death and after her death. It feels like two completely different lives. I think in many ways, the difficulty on the grief journey is what makes it feel like you do exist in two different worlds. However, Sally showed us and demanded of us happiness and joy, and that is exactly what we found in the small slivers of our shattered hearts. From the moment she left us, we promised to find joy in everything going forward. We asked everyone to wear color to her funeral. We kept everything as uplifting as possible, and even when we cried, we made sure we laughed. Her courage gave us permission to be brave. It allowed us to dig deep and find such strength when we had to tell our older two boys that their Zizi, their best friend, was no longer with us. It helped us not fall apart when our children wailed and shuddered in their own grief. We did not break. We didn't falter. We anchored in her courage, in her strength, in her hope, knowing if she could face death, then surely we could face this new life. When I look back on that time in our life, I can see such hope and happiness. I can be proud of how we have always fulfilled her wishes of choosing joy and laughter over sadness and heartache. But to say it was easy would be lying to you. The tears will flow. As a matter of fact, I've been crying since starting this chapter. Whenever I see a white feather fall in my path, I smile and say hello, but parts of my heart still constrict and weep. When my last two boys were born and all we had was pictures of their Zizi, I felt a new sense of grief that they would grow up never having met someone so incredible. But that's what grief is. It's an ebb and flow of the good moments and the bad. It is the contrast between a heart untouched by sadness and one that has been shattered and sewn back together. Grief requires humility and an understanding of the power it wields. An understanding that if we don't choose to seek the light in our darkest moments, the black will consume us. Many people are perplexed that we can find so much joy in such tragic circumstances, but in our story, joy saved us. It taught us that grief can be a gift. Tears remind us we are alive. Scars remind us that we didn't die. And grief reminds us of what we can survive. You might find it odd that I'm ending this book talking about grief and heartache. Perhaps you thought this was the time for champagne and confetti, not sad bedtime stories. However, I could not end this book without making sure you realize that you will be going through a time of grief on this journey. You cannot become new without getting rid of the old. You will not transform into the woman you long to be without first leaving behind the woman that once was. The new you must shed the old you, and you must allow yourself to grieve the old version of you. You see, many women stop at this step because grief is scary. Leaving behind someone that is so familiar to you is really freaking hard. Embracing something that is brand new requires you to get really uncomfortable, and so many give up right before they have completed their transformation. A baby cannot be born without first experiencing the pain, and the same is true in your own rebirth. Do not fear the grief and the heartache. It is normal to shed a tear over leaving who we once were. It's normal to feel scared and uncertain, but what you are gaining is 1,000 times better than what you are leaving behind. Grieve the way you have treated yourself so you can receive acceptance. Grieve the way you have hated yourself so you can receive love. Grieve the way you have put yourself last so you can become first. Grieve the dreams you put on hold so you can finally achieve. Grieve the times you were told you weren't good enough so you can receive your power. Grieve the times you doubted yourself so you can receive courage. Grieve the times you wanted it to end so you can receive the gift of life. Sally is more present in death than she ever was in life. Her spirit is bold and big and all-encompassing, proving that even the fatality of death can't cut the cord of human connection. The parts of her that linger, that comfort us, that watch over us, remind us not of what we lost, but of what we have had the pleasure of loving. The same is true when you lose your old self. Parts of the old you will remain. They will be a steady anchor as you navigate the new waters as the new you. When the waters get choppy and storms arise, they will remind you of all the storms you have walked through, all the waves you have conquered, and all the long voyages you have survived. You will be reminded just how capable and magical and powerful you are. Sister, you will always experience times of grief and discomfort. Life will always throw you curveballs and unexpected situations. You will always be tested and challenged to grow. There will be moments of uncertainty and moments that bring you to your knees. There will be times when your old ways come calling, seducing, and begging you to come back. You will be required to have courage and discipline, commitment and resolve. Moments and situations will arise that seem impossible, but much like we survived all that came before, you will survive this too. I beg you to never be afraid to lose something you love in order to make room for something even better. I beg you to give yourself the time to grieve the old so you can welcome in the new. I beg you to always reach for the light, even when the dark feels so appealing. I beg you to always seek joy and happiness, even when all you feel is pain. Dear friend, hear me when I say that the world needs you, the version of you that is not afraid to get her ass kicked, the woman who begs to be beaten down so she can relish in the sheer will it takes to get back up, the woman who loves herself so damn much her mere presence changes the world, the woman who uses her voice to speak for those who do not have the courage to speak, the woman who demands pleasure, really good sex, and romance, the woman who stares down stereotypes about her body with a smile and refuses to let another person's opinion stand in her way, the woman who lives deeply rooted in gratitude and appreciation of everything she has, whether it's $1 million home or a couch in a friend's basement, the woman who fully believes that she can be, do, and have anything that she desires, the woman who is unafraid to question, to call out, to ask for more, the woman who is confident even when her knees shake, the woman who loves even when it isn't deserved, the woman who chooses empathy over anger and compassion over judgment, the woman who knows that when she steps into her power, the universe works directly through her to heal, to nurture, and to create. My wish for you is that you will forever choose you first, that you will always do what's right even if you are standing alone, and that you will always look at yourself in the mirror and choose love over hate. Only you can find the key to unchain yourself from the prison you abide in. Only you know what must be done. Be free, my fellow goddess, and may you always live today and every freaking miraculous day without apology. Thanks again for listening, friend. I really, really appreciate you spending your hard-earned, valuable time with me. I'm so honored and so humbled and so appreciative. If you loved this episode, I would really appreciate it if you would screenshot and share to your IG stories. Be sure to tag me at Miss Alecia Harris so I can give you a shout out and tell you thank you in person. Sharing is caring. It's really the best way for me to be able to help spread this message of joy and hope and inspiration and light to other people. So if you did love it and wanted to do that for me, I would be so appreciative. Otherwise, I will see you in the next episode. Come hang out with me on IG. Again, that's at Miss Alecia Harris. I would love to see you there. You can also go to my website, aleciaharris.com, to find all of my courses. I have my blog there. I've got lots of freebies and things for you if you need additional resources. So come hang out with me, and I will see you in cyberspace.